Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. I would like to begin by reading the following notice, which has also been distributed into the record. The meetings of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York are open to the public, and the Board welcomes the interest of those who attend. The public has ample opportunity to communicate with the Board. Public hearings on the Board's policy calendar are scheduled 1 week prior to the Board's regular meetings, and members of the public who wish to communicate with the Board are invited to express their views at such public hearings. Furthermore, the Board holds additional public hearings each year in all of the 5 boroughs, at which members of the public may also speak. In addition, written communications to the Board are routinely distributed to all trustees. The Board must carry out the functions assigned to it by law and therefore cannot tolerate conduct by members of the public that disrupts its meetings. In the event of disruptions, including noise, which interferes with Board discussion, after appropriate warning, I will ask the security staff to remove persons engaging in disruptive conduct. The university may seek disciplinary and/or criminal sanctions against persons who engage in conduct that violates the university's rules or state laws which prohibit interference with the work of public bodies. I would now like to request that everyone take a moment to switch off his or her cell phone. Thank you. As usual, CUNY TV is making available an important community service by transmitting the public sessions of this afternoon's meeting of the Board of Trustees live on cable channel 75. This meeting is also being webcast live and can be accessed by going to www.cuny.edu. The public session of this board meeting will be available as a podcast within 24 hours and can also be accessed at the CUNY website. On behalf of my fellow trustees, I would like to express our deepest condolences and sympathy to Trustee Frida Foster Tolbert for the untimely passing of her husband and Hunter College alumnus Terrence Tolbert on November 2nd, 2008. He was an enormously talented leader who was deeply committed to the use of education to positively transform lives. He will be greatly missed. On behalf of the Board and Chancellor Goldstein, I would like to welcome the new USS Chairperson and Student Trustee, Simone Lamont. Simone is pursuing a BS in Mathematics at York College and hopes to utilize her skills by becoming an educator. Trustee Lamont, would you care to say a few words? Welcome.
I believe you said everything that I was about to say. So, to reiterate, I'm an ex-officio member of the Board of Trustees. I'm a student at York College, and I'm the chair of the University Student Senate, and as such, I am the voice of over 200,000 students, and my sole interest is representing those students. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to have you on the board. We recently had the pleasure of having a productive dinner in this room with the newly elected CUNY student government leaders on Monday, December 1st. It was attended by more than 24 student government leaders, including Trustee Simone Lamont, Vice Chairman Philip Berry, Trustees Wellington Chen, Rita DiMartino, Kathleen Facilli, Peter Pantaleo, Charles Shorter, Jeffrey Weisenfeld, Manfred Phillip, and also myself were pleased to be present. Chancellor Goldstein and the members of the Chancellery were also present at the dinner, as were Presidents Kathleen Waldron and Carolyn Williams. A summary of the discussion we had at that dinner is in your packets. we look forward to future conversations as well as other activities coordinated by the Office of Student Affairs. I would like to congratulate Governor David Patterson on his designation of Trustee Mark Shaw to serve as his senior advisor for at least the next 6 months, and congratulations to Senator Malcolm Smith on his designation of Trustee Hugo Morales as a member of his transition task force. It is my pleasure to announce that Trustee Carol Robles-Roman was recently honored by the New York Asian Women's Center for her work in establishing the Queens Family Justice Center, which seeks to coordinate criminal justice and civil, legal, and social services for survivors of domestic violence. Congratulations. Would like to congratulate 2 board members who are recipients of honors from the Manhattan Council of the Boy Scouts of America. They are Vice Chairman Philip Berry and Trustee Hugo Morales. President Antonio Perez is the Manhattan Chapter Chairman of this important organization. And congratulations are certainly in order to CUNY's newest Rhodes Scholar, David Bauer, a senior at the City College and the Macaulay Honors College. David is our 3rd Rhodes Scholar in the past 5 years. On behalf of my fellow board members, I would like to extend best wishes to David as he contemplates his exciting journey to England. You may recall that the Association of Community College Trustees recently held its 39th Annual Leadership Congress at the New York Marriott Marquis. I would like to acknowledge the leadership of Trustee Kathleen Basili, who was the principal speaker at the opening session and who facilitated a roundtable conference session featuring Vice Chancellor Ernesto Malavi and the CUNY Community College presidents. Vice Chairman Philip Berry was the keynote speaker at the closing general session. Senior Vice Chancellor and Secretary Jay Hershenson was a panelist in a town hall meeting focusing on combating poverty. Among other participants from CUNY were ASAP Director Donna Linderman, who facilitated a discussion on improving graduation rates, CUNY's Department of Public Safety, Queens College student Rachel Zavita Smith-Godinger, Queensborough Community College student Letitia Smith, Kingsborough Community College students Shannon Gelizo and Denora McDermott, alumni Mary Kay Adams and Luciana Pace from LaGuardia Community College. The Medgar Evers College Jazz Ensemble was also present. All in all, CUNY was obviously very well represented at this conference. The 2008 fall season was highlighted by Hunter College's clean sweep of all 3 CUNY championship team sports: men's soccer, women's tennis, and women's volleyball. All 3 have or will represent CUNY at the NCAA Division III national tournaments. Brooklyn College swept the men's and women's cross-country titles. The overall races were won by runners from Bronx Community College and Queensborough Community College. Bronx also won the Community College volleyball title, while BMCC captured the men's soccer crown. May I now ask Trustee Rita DiMartino to announce college and faculty honors.
Thank you. Queens College Professor of Physics, Vinod Menon, has developed the first ever flexible microcavity laser, which can conform to any shape and is 95% less expensive to make than traditional lasers. Queens College Professor of Education, Alice Arks, was inducted into the Long Island Mathematics Education Hall of Fame for her outstanding contributions to reducing the shortage of qualified math teachers nationwide. Congratulations. From over 2,300 schools surveyed, Baruch College has been named one of the 25 best graduate entrepreneurship programs nationwide by Entrepreneur Magazine and the Princeton Review. This is the second time Baruch College has been selected for inclusion in the top 25. Congratulations. Distinguished Hunter College Professor Emerita Nancy Siraisi was one of 25 recipients of a MacArthur Fellowship, and Hunter College Associate Professor of Nursing Joyce P. Griffin Sobel was selected as one of 24 fellows of the Academy of Nursing Education. Congratulations. Graduate Center Sociology professors Paul Attiwell and David Lavin have won the 2009 University of Louisville Roy Award for their research on higher education. Distinguished Professor of English at the Graduate Center and Hunter College, Mina Alexander, was selected a 2008-2009 Fellow of the Guggenheim Foundation. And Professor of History at the Graduate Center and Baruch College, Alfonso W. Quiros, received a 2008-2009 John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation Fellowship. Congratulations, and Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. May I call on Trustee Frida Foster Tolbert to announce student and alumni honors?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first-time pass rate of CUNY School of Law graduates who took the July 2008 New York State Bar exam was 82.6%. This matches the record-breaking pass rate from 2007. 109 graduates took the exam for the first time, and 90 of them passed. Congratulations, Dean Anderson. Hunter College graduate student Alyssa Davis has been awarded the 2008-2009 Society of Women Geographers Evelyn L. Pruitt National Minority Fellowship. Hunter College's Model UN team recently won 2 awards at the 3rd Annual Columbia Model UN Crisis Simulation event, and Hunter student Jared Greenfield received an Honorable Mention Award, and Lauren Brians received a Verbal Accommodation Award. Congratulations, Hunter. At the recent annual Greater New York Dental Meeting, Hostos Community College students won 3rd place and Honorable Mention competing against New York University College. Noelia Urania and Gabriella Taylor won 3rd place for their presentation, and Honorable Mention was awarded to Janelle Mortley and Melanie Wildley. Congratulations. This concludes my report, and I thank CUNY for all their support in my time of need.
Thank you very, very much. You have at the table a list of grants and gifts received by the university subsequent to the September 22nd, 2008 meeting. I'd like now to call on Chancellor Goldstein to present his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me also express my condolences to Trustee Frida Foster Talbert. Frida, before you walked in, our chairman spoke very eloquently and very passionately and sympathetically about Terrence, and he was a remarkable guy, and he did extraordinary things for this city, and our sympathies are very much with you during this difficult period. Chairman Schmidt and I, along with President Bill Kelly and former provost of Columbia University, Jonathan Cole, were recently at a trip in China, specifically in Jiangsu province, where we're making extraordinary progress in developing relationships for our PhD programs in the sciences. And I wanted to thank you, President Kelly, for your very good advice and counsel during that trip, and Jonathan Cole did a wonderful job as well. And I'm very pleased. The gentleman that sits to my left is a very modest man, but while we were over there, he was given an extraordinary honor, something that all of us should take great pride in. He was made an honorary citizen of Jiangsu province, and I was at that event. I haven't been to an event that was more regal than that, Benno, and congratulations, I think all of us. We're very touched by you being recognized in that important way, and the relationships that we are trying to establish, I think, will go a long way to building some of our great PhD programs in the sciences as we work.
Mr. Chancellor, I think the closest thing in the 21st century to the experience of royalty is being the guest of a communist government.
I'll stop there. All of you have copies of a recent email news that I sent out talking about the state of the budgets both in Albany and in City Hall. We've been working very closely with Governor Pattison, with Budget Director Laura Anglin, and others in anticipation of the governor's early release of the executive budget, which will occur next week on December 16th. This is a good month before traditionally the governor releases his budget. He will also deliver his state address in Albany on January 7th. I don't need to remind the board and others who are in attendance this evening that the fiscal challenges that we face in the state are quite severe and in many ways daunting. We haven't seen a crisis of this magnitude in most of our professional lives for those of us who are here. But we will stand together. We will create an opportunity to have stabilization in our core academic offerings here. Our work with the Division of the Budget has been very helpful to us as we meet this challenge. But we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we will be talking about the recommendations to you, the board, later in this meeting around the budget for the next academic year for this university. We're very active politically, not only quietly with the governor and the mayor and their principal staffs, but we're mobilizing, as we do each year, the community here at the university through the CUNY Legislative Action Council. They will have an initial meeting on January 8th, and we are, along with SUNY, developing or organizing an event in Albany to bring together all of the state legislators who attended public higher education colleges in New York State, and we're expecting a very large turnout indeed. I've asked 5 of our presidents to serve as borough coordinators as we move through this very contentious season in Albany and at City Hall. Ricardo Fernandez, President Ricardo Fernandez, will represent the Bronx. President Edison Jackson will coordinate activities in Brooklyn. President Tomas Morales will do the same in Staten Island. President James Meiskens in Queens, and I've asked Jeremy Travis to handle the events in Manhattan. I've also directed Executive Vice Chancellor Alan Dobrin to coordinate 3 working groups that I asked to be formed to provide long-term options to help us get through this very difficult and challenging fiscal time. I've reported on these working groups before. I have met with all of the 3 leaders, Vice Chancellor Malavi, who is chairing a group that is examining the university's expenditures, focusing primarily on discretionary spending and looking to protect our core services of instruction, research, and student support. and he's doing a marvelous job in really drilling down deep into the very core of our budget to advise me on options as we go forward. Vice Chancellor Weinschall is chairing a group that is looking into models that we could use to monetize our physical assets here at the university in innovative and creative ways that we haven't utilized before. And lastly, Senior Vice Chancellor and General Counsel Rick Schaefer is leading a group to examine the Board of Trustees bylaws, our civil service rules, and collective bargaining agreements. All three have been working tirelessly to develop initial ideas that we may have to tap into as we go through not only this year but next year as well, which we envisage to be a very difficult and challenging year. Alan, do you want to, is Alan's right here. Alan, do you want to say anything a little more on these committees?
Let me just do a very quick progress report and some of the progress we've made. Vice Chancellor Weinschall's committee has already done a great deal of work. They've retained HR&A to do analysis of all of our properties. They identified 17 properties and asked HR&A to do a number of things. First, to do a site analysis and a triaging to try to get a sense of which of these properties give us the greatest opportunity to save some money. Doing a zoning and market analysis of those sites, and then doing some financial modeling to take a look at how we can best utilize the assets. We've got a preliminary report from HR&A back. They've identified 4 sites as having very high probability for us to utilize, 3 for possible either sale or sale and leaseback, and 1 for revenue generation. They've identified 4 sites with moderate potential and 8 sites which they felt weren't worth pursuing. We've now asked them to go back first to what we felt were the 5 best sites and try to determine whether or not we should proceed with those. And we'll have that answer back in the next month or so. Ernesto's committee, what he's done is he's taking a real look at our budget, and we're really looking at where every single dollar is, and then microanalyzing each of the categories of the budget. And we're then taking all of these funds and putting them into 3 categories. The first is, as the Chancellor said, our core services. And that's the category we expect that'll be touched the least if the budget were to continue to deteriorate. The second is what we call support services, things like public safety, which we would take a look at whether we're doing it at the proper level or not. And then the third is all of the activities that the university does that are good societal things to do, and we're all very proud of doing them, but not something a university has to do. And we would take a look at whether or not it makes sense to continue doing those activities. We're then going to do a number of analyses on these. We're going to take a look at longitudinal analysis, see what are the areas we've been growing in, whether that makes sense or not. We're going to take a look at different benchmarkings. So we would take a look at how much we're spending on information technology compared to other universities. And then we're fortunate that we have 23 responsibility centers in the university, so we have the ability of comparing each of those to each other. So we could look, for instance, at whether or not we're spending, well, how much we're spending in IT at Queens College versus Brooklyn College, and see which way we should be trending that. And then lastly, we're going to be taking a look at restructuring opportunities that we haven't had in the past. As we reported out, we've saved about $50 million over the last 5 years in restructuring and productivity initiatives. But now that we're doing CUNY First, we have a lot of additional technology opportunities. So just to give you an example of something we'll look at, right now each college provides benefits advice to people at the college. We're thinking about consolidating that. If you did that, you would need less people to do it if you did it in one place. But just as importantly, we could do more specialization. So you get, the great white whale, doing more with less. It's a rare opportunity to do more with less, but we really have some opportunities now that our technology is better. And then last, Rick Schaefer is heading up a committee which we call the Enabling Committee, because there are many difficult things we got to get done in order to do these. And Rick is taking a look at Board of Trustees bylaws, and he's looking at CUNY civil service, and labor contract interpretations to see if there's changes we need to make so that we can be as productive going forward as we hope to be. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Alan. And let me just say that we are still at a very preliminary and nascent stage of development here, and at some point when we get a working plan, we will be expanding these committees to bring in more people across the university, certainly board members, presidents, and others at the university, to try to come up with an action plan that we hopefully will not have to invoke in certain instances, but just to be prepared as we did last year when we were successful in managing an unanticipated problem of magnitude that we hadn't seen in a while. Let me comment briefly on the city budget. The mayor's recently issued November financial plan, as many of you know, included budget reductions to CUNY totaling over $5 million in the current fiscal year, and in next fiscal year it is envisioned to be about $9.5 million. In order to mitigate the effects of these cuts on our community colleges, we have identified about $2.5 million in university-wide reserves and program savings, therefore bringing down the reduction target to the colleges to about $2.6 million for this fiscal year. The mayor, however, and I want to emphasize this, that given the data are deteriorating, and we haven't seen an inflection point at all at this point. The curve continues to be negative in its trajectory. The mayor will be issuing his next financial plan update in January, and I would be very surprised if there would not be further opportunities for city government to really reduce further our operating dollars for fiscal year 2010 beyond the 9.5 that was planned several months ago, but we will need to wait to see how that works out. I want to thank Executive Vice Chancellor Alan Dobrin, Vice Chancellor Ernesto Malave, and Vice Chancellor Iris Weinschall for their testimony before the New York City Council Higher Education Committee just a few weeks ago on November 20th regarding the impact of the November financial plan for CUNY. We are also working with the mayor and his staff and with the Daily News, sponsoring the very first Your Money Helpline. This is modeled after the very successful program that Jay Hershenson developed around immigration and citizenship. This program will begin Monday, December 15th through Friday, December 19th from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we anticipate that when we have large numbers of people from the university with backgrounds that we believe could be very helpful in giving advice for people who are in great distress and really do not have the background to be able to manage some of the affairs that they're being confronted with. We're also co-sponsoring a conference on December 3rd with Crane's New York's Business and the New York City Partnership on how to boost New York's economy. Guest speakers will include Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan and Michael Bloomberg, who will give the afternoon address. This conference will take place February 3rd, if I misspoke a moment ago. On the federal level, we at this university have taken a real leadership role in helping to mobilize all of the very top public universities in the United States, a call to action. This was an idea that we discussed with Vartan Gregorian of the Carnegie Foundation, and we have a small working group that consists of our chairman, Benno Schmidt, myself, Mark Udoff, the chancellor or president of the University of California system, Michael Crow, the president of the Arizona State University, and Vartan Gregorian. As of, maybe a half hour ago, we have over 20 institutions signing on to an action plan that was developed by Benno, myself, and a few others in this working group to anticipate the stimulus package on infrastructure that President-elect Obama is anticipated to announce very, very shortly after he takes office. The idea is to get public universities' needs in infrastructure pretty high up in the queue as governors work with the president-elect to get the kinds of investment in infrastructure. Most of the work, of course, has been around bridges and tunnels and roads. Schools have been discussed, but we really have not discussed public university needs as well. And we have already submitted a plan that went to Governor Paterson. CUNY is in the process of doing the same thing, and we're very optimistic that this initiative will get the attention of the new president-elect, and hopefully we will start to see some investment in areas across the United States of public universities that we haven't seen in a while. This is only iteration one of a much more ambitious strategy of really trying to get government to understand how important public higher education is here in the United States. You know, when we reflect on what Abraham Lincoln did in creating the Morrill Act, I think it was, Benno, if I'm not mistaken, 1862?
Yep.
Pretty close to that. And President Truman in creating the GI Bill and the mission agencies that resulted from right after World War II, the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, the National Endowment for the Humanities, all of these institutions that have had a dramatic effect in building up the rich research universities here in the United States. There is a call for action now as we look and see what is happening in the United States relative to what is happening around the world. We must invest in public higher education. We must produce more teachers that are qualified to go and teach subjects that we find difficulty in attracting. We must graduate students in greater numbers. We must retain students in greater numbers. We must do things that we haven't been as successful as we need to do, but it's going to require very serious investment. So I'm very pleased to work with our chairman in getting these ideas out into the public domain, and we will see how we succeed. I'm delighted so far by the enormous number of responses that we have received from some of the very top public universities that have emailed those of us who have been working on this, that we're with you and be prepared to help in any way that they can. We're also looking to renew our campaign for investing in the university. We had a very successful campaign for CUNY that we finished 5 years earlier than we believed we would finish. We reached our goal of $1.2 billion 4.5 to 5 years earlier than we thought we would. I am in the process now of meeting with a number of presidents, their senior staff and development, and the volunteers that work with them at our foundations to try to get a sense of how we can best position our campuses to go for even deeper opportunities than we have already. I've been delighted, and I think our presidents have done an extraordinary job, and the board ought to be very pleased, and I'm sure all of you are, about how successful so many of our presidents have been. But this is really just the beginning for this university. We do not have a long tradition at CUNY in doing the kinds of things that so many of the privates have done, so so successfully for such a long period of time, and I would say many of the publics as well. So I think the opportunities are there. Obviously, it's a difficult time to raise money, but I don't think you stop. Even at a time of downturn, you have to keep on moving, and I'll be working with the presidents as we continue to invigorate this important activity. Our enrollment continues to soar. We now have over 244,000 students studying for degree programs here at this university, and an equivalent number studying in programs that are not leading to a degree, but are leading to skills that are needed to be developed in order for people who are coming to our institutions to improve their lot. SAT scores continue to rise. Applicants continue to rise as well. I'm a little concerned about the rapid rise because we have physical constraints on our campuses, and for me it's important to increase our enrollment by retention, and we're making wonderful progress on that as well. So because the university's reputation has been burnished in very significant ways over the past few years, Mr. Chairman, because our pricing structure is certainly competitive with respect to many other institutions, we have a wonderful opportunity to continue to have an important impact in this society, but we also have to be very careful about doing more than we may be able to do, but we'll watch this very carefully. Mr. Chairman, this is our first board meeting since Mayor Bloomberg and Speaker Sheldon Silver, along with other city and state officials, authorized the full funding finally for Fitterman Hall. We have the money in place, and I want to, I said to Antonio Perez on the morning of September 12th, 2001, when we looked at the devastation downtown, that we will get this done. It took a long time, Antonio, but the mayor and the speaker stepped up here, and the full funding for Fitterman is now in place. And so congratulations that we finally got that done. Mr. Chairman, this is also our first board meeting since our announcement of the successful implementation of the board's approval of moving the School of Social Work at Hunter College to East Harlem, and the generous gift of Lois and Samuel Silverman and the New York City Community Trust, and certainly with the exemplary support of Governor Paterson and the state legislature. So congratulations, President Rabb. This is a great institution. The School of Social Work at Hunter has always had an exquisite reputation, but its best days are ahead with a new facility that will be built. Mr. Chairman, we're also working very closely with the DOE in ways that this university has never worked with the DOE before. I spoke to Joel Klein months ago, and I said that we really have to work in partnership to ensure, to the degree that we can, that when students leave the DOE with a diploma, that they are ready to succeed at our university. And quite frankly, too many of those students that are graduating from the DOE schools are just not ready. And all of us who are educators understand this, and we celebrate some of our successes, but we also lament the fact that too many students are slipping through the cracks. Joel Klein gets it, and as a result of that, we now have a very serious effort that is being managed on our end by Dean John Mogilescu, and on the DOE's end by Joel Klein's Chief of Staff, Photo Agnostopoulos. That's the hardest thing, just pronouncing her name. But they are the two Photo and John are working together, and Joel Klein and I will be meeting with that committee in the next week or so just to see the progress. The working group's goal is to develop a blueprint for college readiness and success. And it could not have come at a more fortuitous time because the Gates Foundation, if you read their literature, this is their primary focus now. And we will be jumping ahead of the curve here in ways that we might be able to partnership with the Gates Foundation as we develop these data sets that will better inform how we do our business. Kudos to the High School of American Studies at Lehman College and the Queens High School of Science at York. Both were listed among the top 100 high schools in the United States by U.S. News and World Report. They really all of you know about CUNY Month, which always takes place in November. We had over 500 events and activities that took place during this month. And we're heavily promoting the winter session and the summer session at this university, but starting in the winter session, it's called Get a Jump on January, and the material is in front of you. Congratulations to Vice Chancellor Ernesto Malave, who was presented with the Hispanic Professional Leadership Award by the New York City Chamber of Commerce. That took place last Friday. Congratulations to you, Ernesto. That is a singular. Congratulations to Senior Vice Chancellor and Board Secretary Jay Hershenson on being selected as the 2008 recipient of the Marvin D. Swede Johnson Achievement Award for his exemplary dedication to CUNY and his outstanding contributions to state relations on behalf of the university. So, Jay, I was very pleased with the work of the Graduate Center and the Recruitment and Diversity Unit of Vice Chancellor Waters' Office of Human Resource Management for successfully hosting the Higher Education Recruitment Consortium's conference this year titled Managing or Making Excellence Inclusive, Promoting Diversity in Higher Education. So congratulations to you. Congratulations to Dolores Fernandez, our president of OSTOS, on being selected to receive the Alfred G. de los Santos Jr. Distinguished Leadership Award in Higher Education. A wonderful award, and congratulations for that. Congratulations to President Regina Peruggi on being presented the Educational Trailblazer Award by Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines in recognition of her outstanding contribution to education over the years. And finally, congratulations. Finally, there are many publications on your desk, and I just ask you to take a look at them because they really present a blueprint of so many things that we'll be doing over the next several months. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chancellor. Are there questions for the Chancellor or comments? Yes, Professor Phillip.
I'd certainly like to express support on behalf of the faculty for the proposed renewal of the fundraising campaign for CUNY. As you know, the faculty have long advocated this kind of thing, an expansion of it. Also, I'd like to express appreciation for the provision of funds for Fitterman Hall. We were also active in advocating for that provision from the city. And we look forward to be part of the conversation in terms of the interactions between the Department of Education and CUNY in terms of getting students into CUNY and making sure that they succeed.
Look forward to your help.
Comments? Other comments or questions? All right, we'll proceed now to our policy calendar. Items requiring a vote now begin. I will move the adoption of the Chancellor's University Report for December 8, 2008. You have copies of this report at the table. May I have a second?
Second.
Are there questions for the Chancellor on the report? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That carries. You have a copy of the minutes of the regular board meeting and executive session of September 22nd, 2008 in your meeting books. I'll move the approval of the minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or revisions of the minutes required? Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are adopted. We'll turn next to our committee reports. We'll hear first from the Committee on Facilities Planning and Management. I'd like to call on Trustee Mark Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Trustees Committee on Facilities Planning and Management considered 8 items at its meeting of November 3, 2008. These action items are listed in this board meeting as counted as items 3A through 3H. I'll introduce all 8 items and then ask for one vote on the resolutions. Item 3A, resolution authorizing a construction contract for the renovation of the field building at 17 Lexington, Baruch College. It requests authorization to execute a contract with the consulting firm of Davis, Brody, Bond, ADIS for design and construction-related services as required for the renovation of the field building at 17 Lexington Avenue. The existing structure dates to 1929 and is in need of extensive infrastructure upgrades. Phase 1 of this project will include renovation of 4 floors to accommodate new classroom and office space, the restoration of the 1,500-seat Mason Auditorium, and upgrades to the existing high school space to create swing space to minimize disruption to building use during renovation. Item 3B, resolution authorizing an amendment to the resolution approved on September 24, 2007 for renovations to the cafeteria bookstore at Bronx Community College. The amendment will authorize an increase in the approved amount for this project from $2.7 million to $4.9 million to cover the base bid of the lowest responsible and responsive bidder. Item 3C, resolution authorizing an amendment to a commercial lease agreement at 2910 Thompson Avenue, Long Island City, on behalf of LaGuardia Community College. CUNY acquired the building at 2910 Thompson Avenue in 1998 on behalf of LaGuardia Community College. At the time, a commercial tenant of the building occupying 2 entire floors and part of 2 additional floors for light manufacturing retained its occupancy of that space under a lease that is now due to expire. The proposed lease amendment will extend the term of the tenant until December 31, 2020. Both the university and the tenant will have the right to terminate the lease anytime after December 31, 2012. The current base annual rent is $1.8 million, about $7.81 a square foot. The new base annual rental payment by the tenant will be increased to $2.7 million, approximately $11.38 a square foot. The rent will also be subject to annual increases pursuant to the CPI. The tenant will be responsible for cleaning and maintaining the leased area. The university will be responsible for structural and exterior repairs. Item 3D, resolution authorizing an amendment to the Baruch College Master Plan. The current master plan for Baruch College was adopted in 1986. In 2007, the architecture and planning firm of FX Val was engaged to develop and recommend strategies to address the college's real and anticipated growth and need for upgrade and modernization. FX Val contracted with Paulian and Associates, a national leader in facilities programming, for the space utilization and needs analysis. This amendment will incorporate the recommended strategies, which include a series of renovation projects and building additions to bring the existing instructional and support space up to current standards and to provide sufficient classroom and laboratory space to meet Baruch College's projected growth and enrollment. Item 3E, resolution requesting approval of the university's 5-year capital budget request for fiscal year 2009-10 through 2013-14. This is the university's annual 5-year capital budget request to support the 5-year capital program, which addresses the major new construction, rehabilitation, and capital equipment needs of the university. Vice Chancellor Weinshaw will now give a brief summary of this resolution.
Thank you. In front of you, you have a handout which we prepared going over the capital budget. As Board Member Shaw pointed out, the request is for fiscal year 2009, 2010 through 2013, 2014, and this will be our new 5-year capital plan. And we're requesting a total of $5.2 billion, $3.8 billion for senior colleges and $1.3 billion for community colleges. As everybody on the board is aware, the state provides 100% of the funding for the senior colleges and 50% for community colleges, the other 50% coming from the city of New York. We prioritized our projects in this request as follows. Our main priority this year is critical maintenance, and I think as the board is aware, last year we were given an allocation of $284 million for critical maintenance projects, and we're told that the state, this was a 5-year plan, will be putting another $284 million in our budget for critical maintenance. We're going to be completing active and ongoing projects like the West Quad building at Brooklyn College, as well as the Sodler building out at City College. Then we are still continuing with the Chancellor's initiative of building projects that support the Decade of the Sciences. I'd like to advise the board that we have broken ground on the ASRC complex out at City College, and we are proceeding with Remsen Hall out of Queens College at a very quick pace. And then there'll be individual campus projects, ones that are not as large as some of these capital projects, but nonetheless are very important to the individual campuses. Mr. Chairman, I think that if any of the board members have any questions, we have the handout, and I'm prepared to answer any questions.
All right, are there questions for Vice Chancellor? Then we'll turn back to you, Trustee Shaw.
Thank you. Item 3F, resolution authorizing a contract for Johnson Controls, Inc. for the purchase of services and equipment to complete the installation of a fire alarm system at New York City College of Technology main campus in Brooklyn. Item 3G, a resolution authorizing a contract with Johnson Controls for the purchase and services of equipment to design and install a fire alarm system at the classroom building at York College, Queens. Item 3H, a resolution authorizing the CUNY General Counsel to negotiate, approve, and execute those agreements necessary to guarantee payment of the debt service associated with the financing of the new residence facility. Construction of the new 607-bed residence facility at the College of Staten Island is scheduled to begin early next year and finish in time for the fall 2010 academic year. The New York City Housing Development Corporation will issue tax-exempt bonds to finance the construction, development, and operation of the facility. In order to guarantee debt service on the bonds, a letter of credit in the amount of $5 million will be established by American Campus Communities Operating Partnership LP. CUNY will be permitted to draw upon this credit as needed to guarantee the debt service as required. I hereby request your approval of these calendar items.
You have the motion. May I have a second? Comments or questions? Vice Chancellor Schaefer.
Yes, just a brief comment with respect to item 3A. Trustee Shorter advised me many months ago of his connection to the firm of Davis, Brody, Bond, and Adis, and his desire to recuse himself from any consideration relating to that firm. They were selected as part of a competitive process in which Trustee Shorter played no role, and he will not be voting on this item at today's meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments or questions for the committee on any of the items? Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Abstentions? And Trustee Shorter's recusal will be noted in the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes my remarks on the report.
Thank you. Trustee Schaefer, do you want to comment on item number 4, the added item on the intellectual property policy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very brief technical amendment to our intellectual property policy relating to the personnel who serve on the Intellectual Property Committee. At the time that we originally the board originally adopted the intellectual property policy. We did not then have a vice chancellor for research, and with the creation of that position, it was felt appropriate that the vice chancellor for research should serve as the chair of the intellectual property committee or her designee, and so this amendment is simply effects that change. Thank you.
All right, I will move the amendment. May I have a second? Second. Any questions for Vice Chancellor Schaefer? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? That carries. Anything further, Trustee Shaw?
No.
Thank you. We'll turn next to the Committee on Fiscal Affairs. I'd like to call on Trustee Joe Loda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Fiscal Affairs met on November 24, 2008, and approved the following resolutions. Calendar item 5A is a resolution calling for the Board of Trustees to approve an investment policy drafted in consultation with the university's new investment consultant, Cambridge Associates. This policy will replace all prior policies adopted by the Board of Trustees relating to investments. A copy of the policy has been provided in the calendar. Before I call on Vice Chancellor Malave to give an overview of the changes to the investment policy and answer any trustee questions, I move the approval and adoption of this item.
Second.
Trustee Malave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just take the board back to over a year ago when we concluded that after 10 years of at the time we had a New England pension consultant as our principal advisors on investment, that it was time to take a fresh look at our investment policy and our investment advisors. And we started a process with a request for proposals for consultant services that took some time to complete. We settled on Cambridge Associates, and we reported that to the board a number of months ago. The first task of Cambridge Associates was to do a complete review of the investment policy of the university, and the investment committee of the subcommittee of the investment committee, excuse me, the investment subcommittee of the Fiscal Affairs Committee engaged in a number of meetings in which a number of presentations were made by our new consultants, and the result of that was the set of policy recommendations that were considered by the investment subcommittee and is before you today. The short set of key differences is a number of things. One, they are devolving to the Office of the Vice Chancellor and the Chancellor the ability to make decisions very quickly. And as you know, in the current investment environment that we're in, we need to be able to act nimbly. And in consultation with the committee chair, the Office of the Vice Chancellor is authorized to make recommendations and to immediately inform the Subcommittee on Investments of any changes in writing. And secondly, to diversify the asset allocation of the university's portfolio. We were sort of heavily weighted in U.S. equities, and it was the recommendations of our Cambridge Associates that we take advantage of emerging markets very carefully, of course, but that we were not as diverse as we ought to be, and that to protect us going forward, we need to have a broader asset base. And the recommendations of the subcommittee were considered very strongly. There was a lot of due diligence that was applied by both our Controller's Office and our Chief Investment Officer, and really very robust meetings of the investment subcommittee. So we're very confident with our new set of recommendations and are prepared to answer any questions, but we are very pleased with the outcome of the work that we started over a year ago. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions for Vice Chancellor Malavi or for the committee on the motion? Then all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That carries.
I will now present calendar items 5B and 5C together. Calendar item 5B is a resolution to adopt the university's fiscal year 2009-2010 operating budget request. Subject to the availability of resources, City University seeks a total of $2.59 billion. This total includes additional funding of $165 million, comprising $85.1 million for baseline needs and $79.8 million for programmatic increases. With the 2009-2010 budget request, the university is proposing the continuation of the CUNY Compact. However, given the extraordinary financial crises facing both the city and states of New York, CUNY's budget message this year reflects the university's pledge to fund a significant portion of its ongoing obligations through continued budget restructuring and efficiencies, philanthropy, revenues from enrollment growth, and includes an increase in tuition of up to $300 per semester for undergraduate resident students beginning in the fall of 2009. From the revenue generated by this increase in tuition, the budget request proposes to set aside $10 million to establish a student financial aid initiative to assist those students placed at risk of not being able to continue their matriculation due to the higher tuition rates. This initiative underscores the university's commitment that no student in need of financial assistance be denied access to the university. The university's #1 priority continues to be the hiring of full-time faculty and providing support for research, academic enhancements, and student services. Calendar item 5C calls for the Board of Trustees to adopt a revised schedule of student tuition and fees set forth in the schedule provided in the calendar. 2, to authorize the Chancellor in consultation with the Chairman to determine the exact increases in tuition and fees up to amounts set forth in the schedule in the best interest of the university and as it may be necessary to countervail possible reductions in state and city funding for college operations, to fulfill its core educational mission and to deliver essential services to its student body and provide needed investment in the academic advancement of the university. And finally, to authorize the Chancellor to make revisions to the City University tuition and fee manual as may be necessary to implement this resolution and to report any such revisions at the first regular meeting of the Board of Trustees following such action. Before I call on Vice Chancellor Malave to offer background on this request, Mr. Chairman, I move the approval and adoption of calendar items 5B and 5C.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Now, do you want to proceed with Vice Chancellor Malave?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes. In your materials today, you have two documents. You have a document, a white-covered spirally bound document that includes all the narrative for the budget request and all the associated numbers. And you also have a presentation that was provided to the Committee on Fiscal Affairs at the November 24th meeting, which I will only go over a number of selected charts. I won't go over the entire presentation, but only over a few. And I'd like to just sort of draw your attention to the document and on page 2, which is entitled Current Budget Conditions and the National Context. And I think it's important to start off with the national context. And all of you know the enormous challenges this country faces financially, the markets, and the economy. And the effects of that challenge has bled into every state and, of course, into New York, which is home to Wall Street, and particularly acute the impact on New York State. And what the governor has projected, and we'll know more about this next week when he releases the executive budget, is a budget gap in New York State of up to $15 billion. An enormous number, an enormous challenge, and we're all dealing with it. In fact, we've already started dealing with the pressures of that challenge, and if all of you know, as the Chancellor has indicated in his numerous emails and communications, that we have already sustained between state reductions and city reductions a net loss of $82 million in resources in the current year. Thankfully, we've been able to sort of manage that, and with minimal disruption to our core services. Obviously, losing $82 million will have an effect, but we've been able to maintain the key academic and student support services. So that's where we start before we enter fiscal 2010. One of the differences this year from prior years is that the governor has telegraphed what the 2010 budget will look like. And on November, or back in October, the governor invited the legislature to return to Albany on November 18th to consider a number of budget proposals to deal with the current year budget gap of almost $2 billion and what was then a $12.5 billion budget gap for fiscal 2010, and made a series of proposals, which I think are important to take note of. He indicated that given the circumstances, that he would be recommending a tuition increase of $600 for undergraduate resident students for the City University of New York for 2010. He also made recommendations for 2009, which didn't get considered, and so I won't dwell on them. But for 2010, he clearly suggested that they would be issuing a budget proposal for a tuition increase of of up to 600 for 600 for resident undergraduate students. And what was clear in his proposal was that that was because of an anticipated reduction of over $80 million in state support. So they were already telegraphing that we were going to be suffering a significant reduction in state support. But what is important to point out is that unlike all previous efforts by the state of New York, going back 30 years to deal with budget challenges, the governor was acknowledging an important principle. One, that to the extent that one can, that if you're going to raise tuition, try to assure that a piece of that revenue returns for an investment program in the City University of New York, and in this case, the State University of New York as well. That had never been the case. Every time a tuition proposal was suggested, it was always to fill a hole or to fill a hole in a partial sense. So students always paid more and received less. So I think it was an important sea change for the executive to acknowledge that that's an important principle. The other one that's important is an acknowledgement that the $82 million that we have already sustained was enough, and that the systems could only take so much, both CUNY and SUNY, and that going forward, we needed to find a way to finance the needs of the university. And that was an important set of principles enunciated by the governor. And again, we'll see more details of that tomorrow. The other thing to consider in the context is, as the chancellor indicated, the city of New York is also facing budget pressures. And we have sustained reductions as of at least $5.1 million to date. And we clearly anticipate the mayor making the set of recommendations to cut even further into 2010. It's uncertain whether or not the city council will go along with it. It's clear that the city of New York is facing budget pressures, and their commensurate budget gap for 2010 is approximately $4 billion. So there are budget challenges everywhere. And so the question for us, and as you'll see in the presentation, is how does CUNY respond? And we've chosen to respond by crafting a CUNY compact that's a little bit different from what we have done in the past, where we have sought full financing of state support for our mandatory needs and an investment program. But acknowledging where the circumstances are with the state, we are moving and still maintaining key components of the compact, which is an effort to increase philanthropy at this university, a continuing effort to self-finance through productivities our needs. It's very important that we simply not seek to increase tuition and forget about our responsibilities to reshape our budget. And when the chancellor refers to the budget working groups, that's what he's referring to make sure that we're as vigilant as we possibly can in making sure that we're spending our resources wisely and maintaining that public trust. So our compact is a little bit different. Most of it is financed through a tuition increase because we believe very strongly that given that enrollment figure that the chancellor referred to, that unless we generate the revenues to meet the challenges of that enrollment growth, we're just going to slip further and further behind. And given the work that this board has authorized us to do in our master plans, we can't afford to do that, and we're not making that recommendation. We're making a recommendation to generate the revenue that we need in this university to move the system forward. Even in these challenging times, and perhaps because of these challenging times, it's important that we have a robust public university system. On page 5, I just want to allude to a couple of things that the chancellor referred to earlier, and this is very, very important, and that's the financial aid program. I have briefed the University Student Senate and the University Faculty Senate on what our proposal is, and that is that we want to make sure that there is no student in this university who is going to be held in harm's way and who is going to lose their matriculation as a result of being unable to afford this increase. And we have been directed to come up with a program to do that. And it contains a number of elements, and I'll very quickly go through them. There's a class of students at CUNY, not the very poor who are fully financed to do a full tuition assistance program that continues to be very strong, and not the relatively the middle-class students that we have at the university who will be very inconvenienced by a tuition proposal, but nonetheless, the risk of them losing the matriculation is not something that it is high, but there is a class of students in the middle that are the working poor, independent students who don't get quite the level of financial aid that we want to target this assistance to. And we're going to work closely with the financial aid community in CUNY to do that. We're also going to create our own jobs program or employment program where students may be given the opportunity to work in various areas of the college during certain select times in order for them to be able to sort of work off their increase in tuition. And something that's turned out to be very popular, no surprise here, is that we're coming up with a program to reduce the cost of textbooks in the university. So on the one hand, clearly students are going to have to pay more in order to preserve their initial investment in this university. But anything that we could do to reduce the cost of textbooks, I think is very important, and we're going to be working closely over the next few months to do that. And finally, we work with these tuition payment plans, which enable the students to stretch out the payments of tuition. So those who, instead of dealing with the sticker shock of, well, it won't be sticker shock because we're giving them an 8 months notice here, but nevertheless, instead of having to pay the whole thing up front, we can spread out a tuition payment over 4 or 5, maybe even 6 payments under generous terms, and we're going to do that. And right now, the program that we have contains a fee for participation that we're going to cover in waves in order to make this as painless as possible under the circumstances. And that's a very, very sort of important feature of this program. I wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of that. Everything else I think you know, and I won't dwell on. The core of this budget proposal is approximately 300 new full-time faculty that we're going to need in this university to maintain the instructional student-faculty ratios that we have with our projected levels of enrollment, and also to focus on some key student service areas. The principal ones are counseling and advising, and we also have a number of new initiatives for veteran services that Gary Moore and Dean Bob Tatchett are heavily engaged in. We are having more and more veteran students come to CUNY, and I think we have an important responsibility to make sure that that is addressed. And then finally, the issue of the Decade of the Science. It is not just about buildings and instrumentation. It's about scholarship support for doctoral students that are essential in order to attract the quality faculty that we need. I'm not going to go through the pages. I will just simply point to the community colleges just for a moment on the tuition charges. We are recommending for the senior colleges, before I go to the community colleges, for the senior colleges, we're recommending an increase of up to 600. It's very important to focus on that up to, because we don't actually know the final details of the budget package. We pretty much know what the likely numbers are, but the chancellor has directed us to try to lower that number to the extent that we can. So right now, the authorization is to go up to $600 for the undergraduate level, and for the community colleges, up to $400 or $200 a semester. And what I want to point out for the community colleges is, while the budget circumstances, the scenarios, the crisis is not as great as it is for the senior colleges, it's very important as an integrated university that we don't diminish and lose sight of the fact that we need to maintain high quality programs at our community colleges in order for that seamless transition to take place. And we're going to model what we are doing this time with the Community College Investment Program that we started in 2003, which resulted in 300 new full-time faculty at our community colleges. And we're going to replicate that program again. But I think it's very important not to lose sight of the need to maintain an integrated university here. And that's why the number is not quite 600, but it's sufficient to create an investment program for the community colleges. And we know the challenges that the city of New York has already telegraphed we're going to face. And finally, the last 2 charts in the presentation, you'll see that notwithstanding the growth and the projected increases in tuition, that CUNY continues to be a very, very competitive program with our competitors in the city of New York. And we believe, not only because of our enhanced quality, but our pricing structure, that New Yorkers will continue to want to come to CUNY, notwithstanding the challenges. And then finally, I just remind the board, and it's sometimes easy to forget, that it was 2003, the last time we raised tuition for undergraduate students. And over that 5 to 6 year period, if you average it out, what we're doing now would still be under the rate of inflation over that period of time. So while it is a challenging environment to raise tuition, we believe that the number is consistent and puts us in a pretty good place to make sure that we carry out the mandate of this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Malavi. Are there questions or comments? Trustee Sutton?
I'd like to address it, Ernesto. How do we compare to other than New York State publicly funded universities, let's say the top 10, what we're proposing and what we are? And when was our last tuition increase and what size was it? And thirdly, are we slowing down the hiring of full-time faculty, or not? How is that playing versus our budget?
The answer to the first one is that we're approximately a little bit under the average. The average is about 6,000 on an annual basis for publicly supported universities. We're at 4,000, so we're under the average nationwide. Secondly, in 2003, it was a 25% increase in tuition when we went from 3,200 to 4,000. And third, as of this year, we have added from 4 to 4, from 4 2007 to 4 2008, we added a net increase of 220 new full-time faculty. That was on top of the 250 that we added last year. So over the past 2 years, we've added net over nearly 500 new full-time faculty.
And going forward?
Going forward, we'd like to add net another 350 full-time faculty.
There's not a university system in the country that has added anything remotely close to that number of net new full-time faculty over the same period. Other comments, or were you finished, Trustee Sutton? Professor Phillip?
It's clear that the most important thing for this university is the continued provision of net new full-time faculty members, and I'm pleased to see that this is a provision of this plan. I should note that the resolution in the board calendar only says 250, and I'm sure that's a typo because the supporting materials here clearly make it clear that the intent is to do 350. It's on that basis that it received support from the representative of the University Faculty Senate on the Board of Fiscal Affairs. I'd like to mention also that I'd like to compliment Vice Chancellor Malave for his continued strong interaction with the Budget Advisory Committee of the University Faculty Senate. This is the longest existing standing committee of the Senate, and we have frequent and intense meetings on this and other aspects of the budget. And at this point, it's wise to it's a good thing to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments, Trustee Lamont?
Good afternoon. I'd like to speak on behalf of the University Student Senate and the students of CUNY. And while we appreciate the need for additional financial resources in the face of drastic budget cuts and inflation in general, the students of CUNY are in opposition of a tuition increase. We feel that a sudden drastic increase in fees will be to the detriment of many students and believe that well-structured incremental increases would serve us better, as this would allow us to budget accordingly. Moreover, the governor's executive budget has yet to be presented, and we feel that a vote on a potential tuition increase is premature. As such, we remain hopeful that upon delivery of this budget, the current financial circumstances of CUNY will be greatly improved. We must commend Chancellor Goldstein and the Chancellery for considering the effect of such an increase on students and for subsequently making plans to keep the increase as low as possible in the event that it does occur. We also appreciate efforts by the Chancellery to include students in the decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments from the trustees? Not, are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One. Abstentions? None. Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I would like to move the honorary degrees that you'll find listed in your meeting books at page 16. May I have a second on those honorary degrees? Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? That carries. Now we'll hear from the Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration. I'd like to call on Trustee Valerie Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration did not meet in November. However, 2 appointments were sent to the committee members for review and placed on the Chancellor's University Report, which the Board has just approved. They are the appointment of Dr. Marva Craig as Vice President for Student Affairs at Borough of Manhattan Community College, effective November 4th, 2008, and the appointment with waiver of Section 6.2C of the bylaws of Dr. Howard Loon as Associate Professor with tenure in the Department of Sociology at Hunter College, effective September 1st, 2008. In addition, it has been brought to our attention that 3 collective bargaining agreements were recently settled. In the interest of expediting the implementation of these agreements for the benefit of the represented employees, I wish to place these added items before the board. Copies were passed out to you. They are as follows. A, approval of the 2006-2009 agreement with Local 384, District Council 37, covering employees at the Educational Opportunity Centers of Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and the Bronx for the period October 1st, 2006 through October 31st, 2009. B, approval of the 2006-2009 agreement between the City University of New York and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, Local 237, for the period August 18, 2006 through September 17, 2009, and approval of the 2006-2009 agreement between the City University of New York and Local 1597, District Council 37, for employees at the Baruch, Brooklyn, and Queens College Student Centers for the period October 1st, 2006 through October 31st, 2009. Mr. Chair, I present these items for the board's approval.
I'll second them. Are there any questions for the committee on any of these items? Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Those carry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been asked to convey a bit of news. A professor at Hostess College, Vladimir Ovcharenko, has advised that a new genus and species of the ground spider family was discovered in the desert of Central Asia. The spider will be named Hostosenia eugeniae in honor of the celebrated educator Eugenia Maria de Hostos. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Where do you go from there?
Well, next call on Trustee Kathleen Basili to present a report from the Committee on Student Affairs and Special Programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Student Affairs and Special Programs met on November 3rd, 2008, and there are no items for the board's approval. Vice Chancellor Moore gave a comprehensive report on several key areas of student affairs, including the CUNY Leadership Academy, University Student Senate, Veterans Affairs, and CUNY's Mental Health Initiative. I am pleased to report that the university is making significant strides in developing a CUNY-wide model for mental health counseling services. The model will ensure access to mental health counseling for all CUNY students, as well as improve, enhance, and expand on the programs and services currently available across all of our campuses. Vice Chancellor Moore will now share with you in more detail the progress on the mental health initiative. Vice Chancellor Moore, please.
Thank you, Trustee. Several years ago, we began our conversation in more detail regarding the need to address mental health counseling and the whole issue of wellness of our students. And I'm very pleased to report today that we have made significant progress in addressing the needs of our students in the area of psychological counseling. I'm also pleased to report that we've been successful in bringing on board a consulting group, Killing and Associates, who are working very closely with me and my staff, as well as the Vice President for Student Affairs and the counseling staffs throughout our system to pull together a very unique, but yet a very meaningful and operational counseling model specific for CUNY. The goal of our work is to help CUNY campuses and system staff conduct in-depth analysis and evaluations of health centers, counseling centers, Seek College Discovery, Veteran Services, Disability Support Services, and all of our programs and services that affect student success. Last year, we met with our CUNY mental health counselors in a day-and-a-half retreat. Vice Chancellor Malave joined me along with the consulting group to hear directly from them what our needs are and how we are serving our students. I'm pleased to report that this was a productive meeting, that we left that meeting realizing that there were some immediate needs to address. We presented the report to the Chancellor and the Chancellery, and the Chancellor responded, and we were able to meet immediate needs on our campuses. So we are in much better shape today than we were a year ago. I'm also pleased to report that we have conducted a number of sessions with our counselors following that retreat, wherein we met with approximately 80 counselors throughout our system to address moving forward. What are our next steps? We currently are engaged in a self-study, looking at each campus, and looking at each, wherein we're looking at the mental health departments, we're looking at our health services, we're looking at our veteran services, we're looking at our disability support services to see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and how do we move our programs and services forward. We have addressed the needs of our departments by adding technology. We've added Titanium software, which is a program that will help our counseling departments manage their cases and collect data. We are testing a new program called Cognito that is a web-based training tool for faculty and staff to detect issues in the classroom before they become a larger problem. We believe that all of the work we're doing will certainly provide better services for our students. We expect to have a complete report of what our specific needs are for CUNY by early February, March, and I expect to provide another report to you at that time. Now, why is all of this so important, and why are we making so much noise about mental health counseling and meeting our counseling needs? Let me share with you a few brief statistics that came out this fall. It's produced by the National College Health Assessment, and they found that 44% of students reported that they were so depressed it was difficult to function in the past year, that 9% has seriously contemplated suicide, and 1.3% had actually attempted suicide. At the very least, these results highlight the reality that colleges and universities must have effective strategies in place for responding to these complex concerns. I believe that CUNY is moving in the right direction, we're doing the right things, and we will have a very sound counseling program that will address all the needs of our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from the trustees on this report?
I just want to, and Mr. Trustee Lode and I just said this jokingly, but for real, I think in this economic period, as students are graduating, having worked so difficult, worked so hard, and going into this job market, I would suspect that your services will be called upon even more so. I'm glad to see the initiative and hope we're mindful of expanding them to deal with what our students will be going through in these next couple of years.
We are. Thank you very much. Just today, we met with academic advisors, psychological counselors, and other staff members from career services to talk about developing this seamless approach where we are looking at what we are doing that we need to collaborate better on. So we are finding that as a student bring to us a particular need, that we're able to address that need, whether it's a job-related need, counseling-related, or other health issues. Yes.
As part of the process, are students being encouraged to come to counselors if they have a sense of fellow students being in trouble?
Yes, that's a great question, and our, in fact, that question came up today from one of our academic advisors in terms asking our counselors if they find that the student is in trouble, they're being encouraged to seek out other avenues. But yes, they are.
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my...
Thank you very much, Trustee Pasili. That concludes our business for this meeting, so wishing everyone best wishes for the holiday season, I declare this meeting adjourned. Have a note.
Hey, Jay, you are way too efficient. The media report on the tuition increase is already out. I just got,